An old man sits in a pile of gray ash outside the city gates. He picks up. The real question of this book isn't, "Why is this happening to me?" It's this: will you love a God who gives you nothing in return? They need Job to be guilty, so they can sleep comfortably in their own beds. They need the machine to work, so they can control their own destinies. They argue for 34 chapters. The sun beats down on the ash heap. The words go in circles. The theological machine grinds its bronze gears against the reality of a broken world. Job scrapes his skin. He spits in the dust. He curses the day he was born. He asks why light is given to a man whose way is hidden. He demands an audience with the Almighty. He wants the ledger. He wants to see the balance sheet. But the echo of their argument does not stay trapped in the ancient desert. You sit in the cold plastic chair of a sterile hospital waiting room, listening to the low hum of fluorescent lights overhead. The doctor has just walked out, leaving a printed pamphlet on your lap. The diagnosis does not make sense. You grip the edges of the paper, and immediately, your mind starts running the exact same cosmic math as the men sitting in the ancient dirt. You look at the balance sheet of your life. You gave your money away. You served in the quiet hours, when no one was watching. You raised your children to be kind. You did not cut corners in the boardroom. You stare at the linoleum floor, frantically searching your memory. That question is not a theological puzzle. It is a diagnosis. It strips away every religious transaction we have ever built for the hidden variable, the secret failure that might have triggered this divine retaliation. You wonder if God is quietly settling a score from 10 years ago. You are caught inside the retribution principle. We have dressed it up in modern language, but it is the exact same machine. We call it favor. We call it sowing a seed. We listen to voices that promise us that if we just harness the right amount of faith, the universe is obligated to align with our desires. We treat our devotion like a divine 401, making deposits of moral behavior so we can withdraw, a tragedy-free existence. But this bargaining is not faith. It is risk management. If your obedience is a currency you use to buy a predictable life, then the accuser standing before the heavenly throne was absolutely right. You do not love the Creator. You love the invisible hedge He built around your house. You love the bank account, the healthy family, and the quiet neighborhood. If the transaction is the only thing keeping you in the pew, then you are incapable of loving Him Chinam without a cause. When the hedge breaks, the entire theology shatters. When the layoff happens, or when the sudden loss hollows out your chest, the math completely fails. You are left staring at the ceiling in the dark, feeling the cold weight of a brutal binary. Either God is fundamentally unjust, or you simply did not pray hard enough to keep the machine running, exposing the bare wiring of our faith. And the answer changes how you read every chapter of this agonizing story. You demand an explanation. You want exactly what Job wanted. By chapter 31, Job does not just want his health back. He wants a courtroom. He wants to subpoena the Almighty, drag Him down into the ashes, and demand that He explain why the ledger does not balance. He wants God to hand over the paperwork. He screams his final defense. He demands an audience. And terrifyingly, the universe obliges. But when the sky finally tears open over the desert, the voice that speaks does not bring a balance sheet. The hot wind drops. The air turns cold, smelling suddenly of ozone and damp earth. A shadow falls across the ash heap, deeper and wider than a passing cloud. The three friends fall silent. The dust begins to swirl, spinning up from the ground into a massive, twisting column of dark air. The whirlwind descends, and the silence of the sky finally shatters. God does not arrive with a scroll of accusations. He does not bring a ledger to balance the cosmic scales. He does not even mention the accuser, the wager, or the children buried under the collapsed dining hall. Instead, He asks a question of his own. Where were you when I laid the foundation of the earth? He pulls Job out of the ashes and takes him on a terrifying. To find that answer, you have to look away from the man bleeding in the dirt. You have to step into a room, sweeping tour of a wild, untamed cosmos. He points to the doors holding back the sea, bursting from the womb of the deep. He points to the storehouses of the snow and the jagged, blinding crack of the lightning. He points to the ostrich leaving her eggs in the dirt. He points to the warhorse pawing the ground, smelling the blood of the battle from afar. He points to the Leviathan, churning the deep ocean like a boiling pot, a creature so fierce, no human weapon can pierce its scales. He shows Job a universe that is beautiful, chaotic, dangerous, and utterly outside of human control. None of these things operate on the retribution principle. The rain does not fall only on the righteous field. It falls on the desolate wasteland where no man lives. The Leviathan does not behave according to human morality. It simply exists in magnificent, terrifying glory. The universe is not a vending machine. It is a masterpiece. God dismantles the theological cage Job and his friends have built. He proves that human justice is entirely too small to serve as the blueprint for the cosmos. He does not offer a reason for the pain. The whirlwind is not a legal defense. It is an invitation to awe. God is essentially saying to the man bleeding in the dirt that human eyes were never meant to see. Picture the ancient scene. A council gathers. Celestial beings stand on a floor. The universe is infinitely more complex than your transaction. You cannot comprehend the architecture of the stars, let alone the architecture of suffering, but you can trust the architect. Job falls on his face in the dust. He covers his mouth. He realizes he has been trying to calculate a God who cannot be measured. He withdraws his lawsuit. But if you look closely at his final words, right before the story ends, the ancient Hebrew text hides one last breathtaking secret. Look at the thin pages of your modern English Bible. Read Job's final response in chapter 42, verse 6. In almost every major translation, it reads like a man who has been beaten into submission. Therefore I despise myself, and I repent in dust and ashes. It sounds like the ultimate concession. It sounds like a man groveling on the hard ground, admitting the friends were right all along, confessing that he must have been a miserable sinner who deserved the heavy hand of judgment. But the Hebrew text says something radically different. The English phrase, despise myself, comes from the Hebrew verb maz. It does mean to reject or despise. But in the original text, there is no reflexive pronoun. Job does not say, I despise myself. He simply says, I reject, or I retract. That shines like cut sapphire. The air is heavy, echoing with a terrifying kind of authority. And then, a figure walks in. What is he retracting? He is retracting his lawsuit. He is dropping the case. He is letting go of his demand for a cosmic balance sheet. And then comes the second verb. The word translated as repent is the Hebrew word nicham. While it can occasionally imply a change of mind, its primary and most common meaning throughout the Old Testament is entirely different. It means to console. It means to be comforted. Read the verse again with the primary Hebrew roots exposed. Therefore I retract my case, and I am comforted upon dust and ashes. This is not a groveling apology. It is a declaration of victory. Think about the sheer weight of what is happening in this moment. The storm has passed. The smell of ozone is fading from the desert air. Job is still sitting in the rough gray dirt. His skin is still covered in weeping sores. His bank account is still empty. His children are still buried. God has not explained the suffering, and he has not restored a single piece of the lost wealth. And yet, Job is comforted. He is comforted simply by the fact that the creator of the universe tore open the sky to speak with him. He is comforted by the presence of God, even when the hands of God are completely empty. In this single breath, the ancient wager is settled. He has dust on his feet. He has been roaming the earth, walking back and forth across the continents. The accuser is utterly defeated. The question that started the entire book, does Job fear God for nothing, has been answered. Job has reached the ultimate echelon of human devotion. He has achieved chinam. He loves God without a cause. He has found a peace that the retribution principle cannot explain. He has discovered that the ultimate reward of faith is not a safe life, a full barn, or a protected family. The ultimate reward of faith is God Himself. The accuser bet that human beings only worship the hand that feeds them. Job proves that a human being can worship the hand that took everything away, simply because it is the hand of the Almighty. But this ancient victory is not just a theological concept trapped in a desert thousands of years ago. The accuser stands on a sapphire floor and demands a reason for human worship. Fire falls from the desert sky, and the ancient transaction is burned to the ground. Three friends sit in the dirt and desperately try to balance a broken scale. A father scrapes his skin with broken clay and refuses to invent a hidden sin. A modern believer waits in a sterile hospital chair and realizes faith is not a risk management contract. And now he stands before the throne of the universe, with an accusation on his tongue. A whirlwind tears open the sky and offers a masterpiece instead of a ledger. A ruined man finds comfort in the gray ashes and proves that love can exist without a cause. One word, one wager, one breathtaking answer. But here's the part I keep coming back to. The terrifying beauty of that single word. Chinham, the accuser, with the dust of the earth still on his dark cloak, stood in the courtroom of heaven and bet the universe that we are all just spiritual mercenaries. He bet that our worship is nothing more than a business deal. But God looked at a man covered in sores, sitting in a pile of ruin, and wagered that the human heart is capable of something entirely transcendent. If you are in a season where the cosmic math has completely failed you, if you are sitting in the ashes, staring at an empty balance sheet, wondering why the hedge was broken, even though you did everything right, the book of Job is not asking you to figure out the variable. It is not asking you to fix the machine. It is asking if you will stay. It is asking if you can look at the empty hands. To understand what is actually happening in this divine courtroom, you have to understand the invisible machine that ran the ancient world, of the Almighty, and still find them worthy of your praise. If this reached something in you, subscribe. Leave a comment. Even one word helps. Share this with someone who feels like the bronze scales have violently tipped against them. Pray for us as we keep digging into these texts. And may the God who speaks from the center of the storm meet you in your ashes and give you the quiet, unexplainable comfort of His presence when the answers never come. Historians and theologians call it the retribution principle. It is the oldest and most stubborn assumption in human history, a jagged piece of broken pottery, and scrapes it against his own diseased skin. His wealth is gone. The logic is simple, brutal, and universally accepted across the ancient Near East. From the muddy banks of the Nile to the ziggurats of Babylon, good behavior yields divine blessing. Bad behavior yields divine punishment. It is a cosmic scale of justice, balanced with terrifying precision. You bring your unblemished lamb to the rough stone altar. You smell the burning grain rising into the desert sky. And in return, the deities send rain for your barley crops. You live a righteous life. You pay your workers fairly, and the universe pays you back with a full barn, a growing flock, and a healthy family. Under this system, worship is not a relationship. It is a contract. We like to think we have outgrown this ancient transactional theology. We assume that because we do not sacrifice goats, we are immune to the theology of karma. But the machine still runs in the background of our modern minds, quietly humming whenever we face a crisis. We still treat morality like heavy coins dropped into a vending machine, expecting a predictable blessing to drop out of the bottom slot. We secretly believe that if we read our Bibles, pay our tithes, and avoid catastrophic moral failures, we purchase an invisible shield against tragedy. His 10 children are dead, crushed under the collapsed roof of a dining hall. His wife has just told him to curse God and die. So when the cancer diagnosis comes, or when the bank forecloses on the house, or when the wooden roof suddenly collapses on our children, the machine breaks down. The bronze scales tip violently to one side. And because the retribution principle demands a logical, mathematical explanation for suffering, It leaves us with only two possible conclusions. Either God is not actually just, or we have committed a secret sin that warrants the punishment. This was the ironclad theology of Job's world. This is what the man scraping his skin with broken pottery believed. And it is exactly what the three friends sitting silently in the dirt beside him believed. The math of their universe required Job to be guilty. But the figure standing before the throne of God in the heavenly council is not interested in Job's guilt. He is interested in the machine itself, the accuser or the Satan, which in the Hebrew text of Job functions as a legal title for a prosecuting attorney, rather than a proper name steps forward. He looks at the flawless, righteous record of this man in the land of Uz. God points to Job as the ultimate proof of human faithfulness. Have you considered my servant Job? There is no one. For centuries, people have stood around this ash heap and asked the exact same question. The friends sitting in the dirt ask it, like him on the earth, a blameless and upright man. And the accuser does not argue the facts. He does not deny Job's perfect behavior. He does not invent a secret sin. Instead, he looks at the balance sheet of Job's life and asks a single, devastating question that threatens to unravel the entire fabric of human religion. It is a question built around one specific Hebrew word. The accuser stands before the throne. The sapphire floor gleams under his feet. The celestial assembly falls perfectly silent. The dust of the earth still clings to his dark cloak. He does not whisper. He speaks with the cold precision of a prosecutor. He looks at the creator of the universe. He points to the man in the land of Uz. He points to the 7,000 sheep grazing on the hills. He points to the 3,000 camels. He points to the 500 yoke of oxen, pulling plows through rich black soil. He points to the 10 healthy children eating at a long wooden table. And then he makes his case. Job does not love you. Job loves the sheep. Job loves the camels. Job loves the safety of the hedge you built around his house. The accuser dismantles the retribution principle in one breath. The scholars writing ancient commentaries ask it. The father sitting in a sterile hospital waiting room asks it. Same question again and again. He exposes the transactional engine of human religion. He claims the system is a sham. You bless him. He praises you. You protect him. He worships you. You pay him. He obeys you. The accuser challenges the divine wager. Take away the payment. Break the hedge. Burn the fields. Crush the children. Watch what happens to the worship. Watch the praises turn to ash. He will curse you to your face. He outlines the destruction. Send the fire from the sky. Send the Sabaean raiders with sharpened swords. Send the great wind, roaring from the desert. Let the roof collapse. Let the skin rot. Let his breath turn sour to his own wife. Strip the man naked. Let him scrape his bleeding sores with a broken clay pot. Then see if he still sings your name. The accuser is not putting Job on trial. He is putting God on trial. He is questioning the very nature of divine worth. Is there any such thing as disinterested love? Can a human being love God simply because God is God? Or are we all just cosmic mercenaries? Are we just religious hired guns? Singing hymns to keep our bank accounts full and our children safe? This is not a minor theological dispute. It is an attack on the worthiness of the Creator. If the accuser is right, God is not worthy of true devotion. Why do the righteous suffer? Most people assume the book of Job is an answer to the problem of pain. He is only worthy of a business contract. He is a divine vending machine. And Job is simply the best customer. The entire accusation rests on the weight of one single question. Does Job fear God for nothing? And the key to that question is hiding right there in the original language. It is a single Hebrew word, tucked into Job chapter 1. Verse 9. It is a word the author of the book will deliberately repeat. It is the thread that ties the heavenly courtroom to the ash heap. And understanding exactly what it means changes the entire premise of the story. Look at the heavy pages of your English Bible in Job chapter 1. Verse 9. The accuser asks a question that seems simple enough on the surface. Does Job fear God for nothing? The phrase "for nothing" sounds like a question about a missing paycheck. It sounds like a debate about financial compensation. But the language underneath the ink is much more dangerous. The word the accuser uses is the Hebrew adverb chinam. It is a word that comes from the ancient root chen, which means grace, or unmerited favor. They read the 42 chapters, assuming it is a philosophical defense of God's goodness when the world is falling apart. Chinam literally translates to freely, gratis, or without a cause. It describes an action that has no strings attached. It describes a reality with no transactional basis, no hidden agenda, and no logical trigger. It simply means for no reason. The accuser is asking the ultimate question of human motivation. Does Job love you chinam? Does his devotion exist entirely without a transactional cause? If seeing the sheer depth hiding underneath our English translations is making you rethink how you read these ancient texts, you're exactly who this channel is for. Drop a thought in the comments and hit subscribe. Because every week we go deeper into the text than you knew was possible. So the word chinam becomes the hinge of the entire book. Because after the fire falls from the sky and the children are buried in the earth, the word appears again. In chapter 2, verse 3. The celestial council meets a second time. God looks back at the accuser and uses the exact same word to describe what has just happened to this broken man. God says, "You incited me against him to destroy him chinam, without cause." And then, deep in chapter 9, when Job is sitting in the gray dust, covered in sores, he uses the exact same word himself. He cries out to the empty sky that God is multiplying his wounds chinam, without reason. But if you look closer at the ancient Hebrew text, at the actual dialogue driving the plot, you realize the book. That root changes everything. When you track chinam through the text, you realize the book is actively dismantling the retribution principle. The suffering in Job is not a punishment for a hidden sin. It is gratuitous. It falls completely outside the neat, mathematical system of divine karma that the ancient world worshipped. But if the suffering is without a transactional cause, the worship must also be without a transactional cause. Worship is not a contract you sign to guarantee a safe life. It is the posture of a creature standing before its creator, even when the barn is empty and the grave is full. The accuser wagered that human beings are incapable of chinam love. He bet the universe that the moment the blessings stop, the worship stops. To prove him wrong, God does not just have to silence the accuser in heaven. He has to silence the theologians sitting in the dirt. 3 men walk across the dry earth. They see the ash. They smell the infection. They tear their heavy cloaks. They throw dirt into the hot wind. They sit on the ground for 7 days and 7 nights. The sun rises. The sun sets. The sores weep. No one speaks. Then, the silence breaks. Eliphaz the Temanite opens his mouth. Bildad the Shuhite speaks next. Zophar the Naamathite joins the chorus, is not answering that question at all. Job is not a story about why humans suffer. It is a story about why humans worship. They look at the ruined man. They do the cosmic math. Action yields reaction. Sin yields suffering. The retribution principle demands a variable to balance the equation. Eliphaz leans in. Who that was innocent ever perished. Bildad points a finger. If you are pure and upright, surely he will rouse himself. Zophar raises his voice. God exacts of you less than your guilt deserves. They push. They probe. They demand a confession. Admit the hidden failure. Confess the secret greed. Give up the buried idol. Balance the bronze scales. Fix the broken machine. Make the universe make sense again. Job refuses. He holds his ground. He screams at the silent sky. He swears his hands are clean. He swears the suffering is chinam, without cause, without reason, without a mathematical explanation. The friends grow furious. Their voices rise. Their arguments sharpen into spears. They offer platitudes. They offer cruel assumptions wrapped in beautiful religious language. Because if Job is right, their entire worldview collapses. If Job is innocent, then their own healthy children are not a reward for their good behavior. If Job is innocent, their own full barns are not proof of their righteousness. If Job is innocent, the universe is wild, untamed, and completely out of their control. Their theology is not a defense of the Creator. It is a defense of their own safety.